if I asked any person listening to this, what are you capable of achieving in this lifetime? Nobody can answer that. We don't have a crystal ball. But I've also realized that we set goals and we impose those ceilings on ourselves because we say, that's impossible, or there's no way I could do that. How do you know? And it's because we were taught that the purpose of a goal is to achieve a result, meaning your measure of success is whether or not you cross the finish line that you declared. But if you reevaluate or redefine the purpose of a goal not being the result, but being a compass to inform who you can become, then it's not about setting goals that are within your comfort zone or your skill set. It's about setting goals that are so big that you can't currently see the path. And it would require you to reinvent who you are, who you can become, and put your actions on a much steeper trajectory so that you achieve more than you thought possible.
Welcome to the show. I'm Scherr, host of Business Minds Coffee Chat, where you get a captivating look inside the minds of game changers, risk takers, and visionaries who turn ideas into breakthroughs that shake up the world. Our mission is to give you fresh ways to think that spark growth in your business and life so you can make a mark that lasts. I thought a good starting point for us would be for you to share with all of us what your favorite thing is about yourself.
My favorite thing about myself?
Yes.
I have cultivated an appreciation for my ability to set goals beyond what I think is possible, but goals that require me to reimagine who I would have to become, to even put myself on a trajectory to get to those goals, and then getting there by surrounding myself with the right people and asking them the right questions.
So tying back to questions that I had mentioned at the intro, we know the importance of that. Obviously, we're going to explore that more deeply here. So with that said, and by the way, I love that response. So setting goals beyond what's possible. So give me an example. Let's go back a little bit in time. Give me an example of a big goal that you set for yourself that was really beyond what you could see for yourself at that time.
February 8th, 2024.
Okay.
So at the time of recording, we're talking about a little over a year and a quarter ago. I mean, literally about 15 months ago. That was the day that I made a commitment to myself that I was going to start writing a book about AI and leadership. And once I finished the book, I would start building a company focused on AI and leadership. But here's the catch, Jay.
Okay.
When I made that commitment, I felt like a massive imposter. And I felt unworthy. I felt that I had not earned the right to write the book about the subject or build a company on the subject.
Tell me more about that. Why?
Yeah. I knew, based on my track record, I had already taken a popular business book in The One Thing and turned that into a training and consulting company. I knew how to take a world-class book. The One Thing is arguably one of the greatest books, business books in history, and turned that into a large company. I had always wanted to write my own book. I always knew I would write my own book. But I had a conversation with a coach that I was going to hire named Charlie Hone. He's arguably one of the greatest business author coaches in the world. He was behind Tim Ferriss. He also helped me. And he said, Geoff, if you're going to write a book, it has to drive the business. And I said, great, Charlie, but I don't know what the business is. I don't even know what the book would be about. And frankly, I don't feel qualified to write the book yet. And he said, well, that's a little bit of a problem. And I asked myself, do I become the person who's worthy of writing the book first and then start writing? Or do I make a commitment to start writing and use it as a forcing function to go so deep on research and so deep in terms of personal application that I would emerge as a global authority on AI. The moment I asked the question, I knew the answer. I made the commitment and I started. And I went deep. And when Charlie and I first said, he said, "Hey, I think we'll get you to a draft, your first draft of the book by the end of 12 months. And I said, if you can do that, that would be remarkable, because I know how hard writing a book is. 97% of first-time authors don't even get to a draft because it's so hard. Those that finish, it takes them 2 to 5 years to finish the book. It took Gary and Jay 5 years to research and write the one thing. And so I'm going, a full draft in a year? No way. I had no idea, Jay, that I would go start to finish in 5 months.
Wow.
That the AI-driven leader would instantly hit number 1 in its categories. And that literally in 12 months' time from the day I said I'm going to start writing the book, I'd have a multi-million-dollar company and over 12 people full-time. So that blew my mind.
That's pretty incredible. All right. So through that process and through working with Charlie, what were you learning about yourself? So now you've got the perspective of time, right? You can look back and you can see where you started and where you are today. What specific areas of growth, mindset shift, what were you learning about you as you were going through this process?
I've always known, at least for the last decade, that we put ceilings over our achievement.
Mm-hmm.
If I asked any person listening to this, what are you capable of achieving in this lifetime? Nobody can answer that. We don't have a crystal ball. But I've also realized that we set goals and we impose those ceilings on ourselves because we say, that's impossible, or there's no way I could do that. How do you know? And it's because we were taught that the purpose of a goal is to achieve a result, meaning your measure of success is whether or not you cross the finish line that you declared. But if you reevaluate or redefine the purpose of a goal not being the result, but being a compass to inform who you can become, then it's not about setting goals that are within your comfort zone or your skill set. It's about setting goals that are so big that you can't currently see the path. And it would require you to reinvent who you are, who you can become, and put your actions on a much steeper trajectory so that you achieve more than you thought possible. I've known this for the last decade because that's the work that I've done with executive teams. I had no idea what that would look like when you then harness AI to turn your personal strengths into superpowers.
Wow, that is so good. All right, so I want to hit pause before we go the route of AI.
Sure.
A lot we're going to cover there. But there's a couple of things that you said that I want to tug on some threads here. Number one is you were sharing this story about goals and you were trying to think, should I become the person first? Should I take action? What is it, right? And the word belief came up in my mind, and I'm curious from your perspective, what and I want to go back in time. So way back before your career really began to take off, but what was something that you believed about yourself early in life that you discovered later wasn't true?
That I wasn't worthy.
Ooh, tell me more.
When I was a kid, I was bullied significantly. I grew up most of my childhood years hating myself. I never had a friend at the same school until college. Like, childhood was pretty brutal. What I realized is that we all have traumatic experiences in our life, and our body has a way of coping with that trauma to move us forward, and it serves us until it doesn't. My way of coping with the trauma was driving to be successful. I thought if I could be more successful than other people, they would like me. And Jay, man, did it drive me. I achieved a lot at a very young age. I mean, when I moved to Austin to partner with Gary Keller and his co-author Jay Papasan to turn their book, The One Thing, into a training and consulting company, I was 28. I had never been a CEO of a company, but all of a sudden I have a multi-billionaire saying, I will give you all my models and systems for scaling businesses. You have to learn them, you have to live them, and then you have to figure out how to teach them. And all of a sudden I found myself standing in front of C-level teams of Fortune 500 companies, facilitating their strategic offsites, taking them from a 21-page business plan down to one, because I mastered the art and science of asking the right questions. I thought that I had made it. The problem was that job fed every piece of the little 8-year-old that was still inside, that was still hurting. I looked externally for validation. And it wasn't until I sold my stake in The One Thing that I woke up the next morning deeply depressed, because I sold my identity.
Wow.
I made the mistake of attaching my identity to my work rather than aligning my identity with my work. And what I learned was that you are you. You are not what you do. And my whole life, I've looked externally for validation and worth. And for the first time in my life, I had to go inward and rediscover who I was, and more importantly, who I could become, and learn to actually love who I am.
All right, so let's explore that a little further if we could.
How's that for a guy who wrote a book about AI?
Oh, I love it.
Which, by the way, is going to come full circle. You just wait.
Okay, and I know it will, but here's the thing. I know, because I know my audience, and the audience continues to grow, I know that there are people that are watching and listening right now that are hearing your voice, and they are going through a similar experience, whether it's an identity crisis, not believing in themselves, being driven but not feeling fulfilled. So I'd love it if you would take a moment and speak directly to those individuals. And I happen to be one of them. I've been through that before, and I'm a work in progress. So even when I feel like I've made substantial progress and I've done a lot of work, even though I feel like I've made substantial progress, there are times where I'll find myself in a contemplative mood, feeling that I'm not good enough, I could be doing more, all of the things that we think. So speak to me, speak to those individuals on that point of feeling unworthy, feeling like we're attaching ourselves to the work we do and not doing enough of the inner work.
I get it. It's normal. It's what our culture has rewarded. And I think if you play a game that if you say, if I stripped the job title away, if I took away the money, if I took away the status, who would I be? If you had asked me that question 2 years ago, I wouldn't have known how to answer that. I physically would not have understood you. And my brain would have shut me down from even searching for that answer because it would be so painful. Now, if I say, man, I hired a coach when I was going through the depression post-exit. And this is right when I was about to step in house as chief growth officer for Jindal Steel. And for context, unless you actually live in India, saying Jindal, the last name Jindal, is like saying Rockefeller or Carnegie. Like there's 4 big family names in India. This is one of them. So saying that I coached the chairman it's like saying you coached the Steve Jobs of India. Mm. The coach said to me, you need to be really careful not to repeat the same mistakes. because you could easily let this job, the money, the fame, the trappings that come along with it, go to your head. But it's not who you are. It's just what you do. My hope is that while you do what you do, I hope you figure out who you are. Now, even today, if I imagine, take away my book, The AI-Driven Leader, take away my company, AI Leadership, who am I? I'm a family man with a business. I'm not a businessman with a family. I'm somebody who every day wakes up trying to expand what's possible by surrounding myself with the right people and asking the right questions. And I'm prepared to invest the rest of my life doing that.
What a beautiful reframe. Truly. So for all of you that are watching and listening right now, there was a lot of insight packed into just a short few moments there. And I would encourage you to go back and re-listen, think about what Geoff just said, because that question, those questions that we ask ourselves about ourselves are some of the most important questions that we can ask. And Geoff, I thank you for sharing that with all of us. That's very meaningful, and that helps give us some context into a bit of who you are, what shaped you, and the person who you've become and who you're continuing to become, because we're always in a state of change, right?
Well, thank you for asking the right questions.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your introduction to AI for the first time. When did you first become exposed to it?
Yes.
And what was your initial thought when you first were exposed and were introduced to AI?
It was December of 2022.
Okay.
ChatGPT had literally been on the market for 2 weeks. That's how early it was. I was in India, and I had pulled together every executive leader around the world into India for an offsite where we were going to discuss the future of leadership inside the Jindal organization. So I had people flying in from Africa, Australia, Middle East, all over India, and I came in from the US. It's the morning of the offsite. One of my colleagues leans over and says, "Hey, have you heard of ChatGPT?" And I said, "No, what's that?" And he showed me his phone, and he typed in a prompt. And when I saw AI generate an answer, I had what I call a light bulb moment. It's when you see AI turn a relatable moment into a remarkable experience. When I saw it, I was brought back to an incredible piece of advice I was given my senior year of college. I was doing an internship, and I sat down with the CEO right before graduating, and I asked him, Jay, what job he thought I should get after school. And he leaned in and he said, "Geoff, you're asking the wrong question. You should be asking, what are the skills I can master that are so valuable they'll serve me no matter where I go? Then go find jobs that will help you build those skills." It was the first time in my life I was introduced to the power of asking the right questions. And I had no idea that that advice would not only shape the trajectory of my life, but that asking the right questions would become one of those skills. So when I saw it, I thought, I think this is a skill that's worth mastering. I think this will serve me no matter where I go. But the moment I started thinking about making a commitment to doing it, I had all the limiting beliefs. I'm so busy. I'll get to this later. Or you know what? This is a big company. I'm just going to delegate this to IT. But there was something that said, no, Geoff, this is your job. This might be a career-defining moment. I dove in. The problem was I was asking myself the wrong questions when it came to using it. I was asking, how do I use this to write a better email? Or how do I use this like a really smart Google to give me an answer instead of give me a bunch of links? But I was disappointed, Jay, Because again, this is a big company, 100,000 people. I'm being tasked with driving growth all around the world. I got stuff to do. And I'm dinking and dunking with these little 80% use cases that only drive 20% of the results. But I looked in the mirror and thought, maybe it's me, not the technology. Maybe I'm asking the wrong questions that are getting me to focus in the wrong areas. And so I thought, what matters most in my role? And it was strategic thinking, because I firmly believe your ability to think strategically is the difference between growing your business or going out of business. I've built a career on asking leaders the right questions. What if I could get AI to ask me the right questions? That was the great unlock. The moment I stopped asking it questions and started turning the tables and having it interview me, oh baby, that was a game changer. And I found every quarter I'm traveling to Delhi. I'm at the chairman's house. I showed him how I was using this for strategy. And he goes, this is incredible. I said, yeah, it's the future. And he goes, I agree. I said, we should drive this through the whole company. He goes, I agree. I said, this is so important. You need to own this as chairman of the board. And he leans in and goes, I disagree. You do it. One problem, Jay. I know nothing about AI. Wow. But I found myself thinking, how can I drive this through the company? It was the wrong question. Something I learned from Gary Keller is anytime you're hitting a ceiling of achievement, you're just missing a person. So instead of asking, how can I do this? Ask, who can I get into relationship with that could help me do this? That led to partnering with Google. I started hanging out at their headquarters in Delhi every 90 days, and I learned a lot about the technology and then realized the big problem. Every leader is focused on the tech, treating it like a solution, looking for a problem. AI adoption is not your goal. Driving growth is. AI can accelerate you achieving growth, or it can distract you from it. The difference that makes the difference is not the technology. It's the leader. No one was focused on the leader. And that's when this felt like a genuine calling to me. I was so certain. I was like, I resigned in January of 24, burnt the ships, quit a job that you do not quit, and said, I'm going to write a book about this, and I'm going to build a company on this. And that's what led to February 8th, when I was like, I'm going to do this. Oh, crap. I'm not qualified to do it. And the rest is history.
Okay, so let's pause there for just a moment, because a couple of things that I want to go back to. But the first question I have is, as you're telling me this and as you make the decision that you're going to leave this role because you were so convinced that you were the right person to bring this to a new group of leaders and really change the way we look at leadership today. So when you made that decision, or as you're contemplating this, what is your wife, Amy, thinking? What conversations did you have with her when you decided, when you're talking to her about leaving this incredible job or career that you've created for yourself? It
was taking a big toll on our marriage, because every 90 days I was abroad 3 weeks at a time. And it's not like I was just gone for 21 days. 2 weeks leading up to the trip, she's anxious. And 2 weeks after the trip, she's just mad. So all of a sudden, you add all that up and you realize it's about half of a quarter. My marriage is dysfunctional. So it was really hitting us at home. And also, I've had a few times in my life where I felt like I was playing below my potential. Growth is my core value. And playing below my potential is actually painful. What I loved about the opportunity as Chief Growth Officer was the impact that I could make. I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands of people that were touched by things that we did at an executive level. That was really cool. I also saw the slope of that trajectory in terms of the impact I could make getting shallower, not steeper. And I'm not the type of person who goes backwards. It's onwards and upwards. So it was very, and honestly, when I saw AI for so much of my professional career, I thought, man, if I could just have been born and old enough when the internet came out, I could have done such amazing things. And then I saw AI, I'm like, oh, this is way bigger than the internet. And I felt like my entire life had conspired for me in this moment. I knew the power of writing a great book. I knew how to turn a great book into a business. I happen to have an ability as a communicator to turn complex ideas into very simple things that people can take action on. And I'm a really good storyteller. So like, I knew I could be an ambassador of a new category of leader, which is an AI-driven leader. And I just felt it in my bones. I didn't need to know any more than that other than to say, let's go. I'll figure out the rest later.
That is so good. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is an area where I find that many of us probably are today, or maybe we are getting close to that line. And it was when you first saw AI and you described that moment to us, but you also had to go, there was a switch that went off in your mind where, as opposed to looking at it as something that, well, I'll get around to that at some point, or that's really interesting, but I've got a bunch of other things I'm working on. You went from that to, I need to go all in on this, right?
It's the difference between being interested and being committed.
Okay. So tell me more about that, because I want all of our listeners and those that are watching us right now to understand that process, to understand what you went through and how you became committed versus just interested. Because I know there's a lot of people that are probably interested, but they don't know whether they should be committed or not.
I'm also a high quick start. On a Colby, I'm a 3-3-9-3, meaning I get into action fast. On a disc, I'm a very high D and high I.
Okay.
I'm also wired for action. When I just saw it, I remember thinking, I think this could be a career-defining opportunity. I don't know much about this, but I just have a feeling that if I lean in and if I prioritize this, something good will happen. It's happened a few times in my career. Those have been some of the most game-changing, disruptive moments of my life in a positive way. I've learned to listen to those little whispers in my head. And trust me, I had all the doubt that every other person might have when they hear this. But I've also learned that if I just start taking action, good things happen. I've learned to detach myself from the outcome. I don't need to know what the finish line is or what it looks like. I can just tell by my inner compass that I'm going in true north, and I'm just going to move. And I'm going to move as fast as I can.
Take action, my friends. I love that. All right. So share with us what it means to become an AI-driven leader. What is that in your mind?
An AI-driven leader is somebody who harnesses AI to create better leaders, better businesses, and better lives. How you do that? Every single one of us has unique strengths that if we really harness what makes you, you, and you focus those strengths on the 20% priorities of your role that drive 80% of the results in alignment with the goals of the company, and then you use AI to turn those strengths into superpowers, that's an AI-driven leader. And I have seen it. I have done it myself. The version that you are talking to today, 15 months after that commitment, I mean, you're going to hear the stories that I'm going to tell you on how to use this. You won't believe that I really got serious about this a little over a year ago. But this is where, you asked things that I now know to be true or things that I thought were true that are not. When I say we grossly underestimate who we can become, I am telling you, however big you think you're thinking, of yourself in 1 year from now, I'm telling you, you're thinking at least 10 times too small. There is a version of you that could be 10 times more significant, whatever that means to you. You're only 12 months away, if not less, if you are willing to let go of the way things used to be and reimagine who you can become and take massive focused action on a daily basis.
Okay, so my hairs are standing up. So let's get tactical.
Sure.
And talk about the how we actually do that.
Sure.
So I mentioned at the intro that we're going to talk a bit about crit.
Yes.
And the power of the prompt. So first, if you could define what crit is, and maybe I'm going to let you guide this because there may be some additional context that's required to get there before you actually explain what it is.
Most people right now are using AI, meaning generative AI, like ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, Gemini. They're using it like Google or like an assistant to help them write better emails. Here's the thing. These bring value, Jay. There is value there. But you're focusing on the 80% tasks that only drive 20% of the results. What if you just turned it on its head? What if you didn't care about the 80%ers, but you really focused on the 20% priorities that could drive 80% of your results? What if instead of viewing it like a Google or an assistant, you raised your standards and you started thinking of it like a thought partner with you as thought leader? Meaning you don't ask it questions. You get it to ask you questions. But in order to do this, you have to know how to communicate with it. Now, I saw a wedding ring on your finger. Jay, how important is communication in your marriage?
Number one.
How's the quality of your marriage if you are communicating ineffectively?
Ineffectively, not good.
Yeah. It's the same thing with AI. Quality of communication determines quality of results. You just need a way to communicate effectively with AI. And that is where CRIT comes in. CRIT is an acronym. It stands for context, role, interview, task. This is a framework, or think of it like a recipe in cooking. This will produce Michelin star output every time, guaranteed. For any use case, out of every 100 prompts that I write, Jay, 99 of them follow CRIT. I personally use this. I have taught this to over 10,000 people in the last 6 months. This blows people's minds. You give AI context, then you assign it a role where you ask it to become a certain type of expert. Then you turn the tables and you have AI interview you by asking one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context about your situation so it can then accomplish a task. Here's a real use case. I was sitting in front of a group of CEOs and I asked, what are the biggest problems you're facing right now? If we could just solve them, it would unlock a new level of growth for you. Jay, the question itself is strategic. I don't care about AI. I care about building better leaders, better businesses, better lives. If we are going to focus on a use case, it better matter. A CEO looks at me and says, I've got a big problem. I run this manufacturing company here in the US. I leased all this equipment from a company in Japan, but things have started to shift in the market and the debt structure is killing us. We're going to go bankrupt if it doesn't get restructured. I go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What have you done? And he said, I feel like we tried everything. And he lists 5 strategies he's deployed. None of it has worked because this company in Japan, the board is refusing to restructure the debt because they think they'll lose face in Japanese society.
Cultural challenges, yes.
And he goes, I have no next step. We're probably going out of business. Can AI help? Now, this is a quick filter. Is this a 20% priority that will drive 80% of his results? Say, oh yeah. So we dive in. I pulled up AI, in this case, ChatGPT, and I literally, in all capitals, wrote context, and then I skipped a few lines, role, skipped a few lines, Interview, skipped a few lines, task. And the way you skip lines in AI is you hold down shift and you hit enter or return a bunch of times. So now I've got a framework for the prompt, context, role, interview, task, with lots of space in between each header.
Okay.
Here's the actual prompt I wrote, word for word. Context. I'm a manufacturing CEO. I leased all this equipment from a company in Japan. Things have shifted in the market. The debt is now killing us. We're going to go bankrupt if it doesn't get restructured. I feel like we've tried everything. Here's the 5 strategies I've deployed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. None of it has worked because this is a public company in Japan and the board is refusing to restructure the debt because they think they will lose face in Japanese society. I have no next steps and I fear we're going out of business. Role. Your role is to act as an investment banker with deep expertise in restructuring debt. Interview me. Ask me 1 question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context so you can accomplish the task of generating 5 non-obvious strategies I could deploy to get the board to restructure the debt. That was 1 prompt. Let's pause. How many of you listening to this are going, what?
Yeah, I know I am, but can I ask a couple of questions before before we hit the enter button? Okay. So I understand the context, lots of detail, all the information that was shared with you, right? You put it into the prompt and I mean, you gave it all, which is amazing. The second piece to that, the role, when you wrote what you wanted the role to be, this is the role that you want AI to play, if you will, in responding back to you and in asking the questions that you asked it to provide or to ask you, to interview you.
It's like the Matrix. Neo didn't know Kung Fu until Morpheus pushed a button, uploaded data to his head, and then he knew Kung Fu. Mm-hmm. Every one of you listening to this has certain expertise, but you now have expertise to the world. These AI models have been trained on anywhere between 200 to 500 million books worth of data. It can recall 100% of it in under a second. So if I say an investment banker with deep expertise in restructuring debt, it knows what that means. And oh, by the way, since I happened to mention Japanese board, it took the liberty to research 2,000 years of Japanese culture so that when I hit enter, it turned the tables and asked, do you have any relationships with any influential executives in Japan that the board would respect? And I look at the CEO and he goes, oh my gosh, I would have never asked that question. I actually do. And it asked 2 more questions like that and came back and made 5 non-obvious strategic recommendations. Number 1 on the list, Jay, was the Saving Face Consortium. It said, you have all the right relationships with all the right people in Japan. Just approach them to acquire your debt. Give them super favorable terms. Your debt will get restructured. The board will save face. I look at the CEO and he's actually holding back tears. And he looks at the people in the room and says, I have not slept in 90 days. I've literally been making peace with the fact that we are going out of business. And in less than 10 minutes, I got hope. 2 months later, my phone rings and it was a text from him and it said, the ball is moving. I actually think this is going to get done.
That's incredible. That is amazing.
So let me give it to you
happening. This is happening before their eyes.
Yeah.
And the majority of the time was really you taking the information and creating the prompt, right? Using crit. Yes. But then once we enter it, the response came back in seconds.
I have literally used ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot with crit and seen companies drop anywhere from $10 million to $300 million to the bottom line in a 10-minute prompt. With ChatGPT, it's not the tool that makes the difference. It's the leader who harnesses it that does.
Amazing. So we talked about at the beginning and through part of this conversation, we've talked about the power of the questions that we're asking. You've given some great insight into questions that you were asking yourself about your own growth, about your own career, about your own family, your marriage, all the things. And our ability as leaders in our business and our life, the ability to be able to ask better questions is going to help us create better results, better solutions, better answers. And when we can do that using the CRIT format and the framework, that's power in your fingertips. My question, and this would be my question to each and every one of you that are watching and listening right now, how are you going to take the information that you're learning right now, and how are you going to put it into practice? Are you going to take action on this, or are you just going to use this as another tool? Are you committed, or are you interested?
Can I make it really
question that
simple?
I'm asking myself. Please make it simple.
Everything I've shared here, by the way, I actually practice what I teach. I walk the talk. Here's the simplest yet most significant next step you can take.
Okay.
I want you to grab 2 sticky notes and a Sharpie. Dead serious. I am holding up sticky note number 1 from my desk, and in Sharpie, it says, "How can AI help me do this?" On the second sticky note, it says, "Context, role, interview, task." I personally have these 2 sticky notes on my desk, and I wrote the book, literally, because it's tough to read the label when you're inside the box. Every day you're doing things that matter, and you're doing it the old way, relying on your own human processing power. And I have found tremendous value because I'll look down and I'll see, how can AI help me review my financial statements? I have no clue. What would that prompt even look like? Context, role, interview, task. Okay, let's give it a go. Open up ChatGPT. Context, role, interview, task. Context, here's my financial statements. Drag and drop. Role, your role is to act as a strategic CFO who's world-class at telling a CEO the top 5 non-obvious insights they should know about their business based on the financials that they probably don't know about their business based on the financials. Interview me, ask me 1 question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context. Then your task is to tell me what those 5 things are. Jay, that's a real prompt. That blew my mind. I now do it every month. 2 sticky notes and a Sharpie.
It's definitely going to be sitting in front of me every single day. So 2 sticky notes. I've got the sticky notes right here. Sharpie, that's next. That is exactly what I'm going to do. And I hope all of you will do exactly the same thing. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, and we're obviously going to link to this in the show notes, but a lot of the background behind what we've been talking about here is detailed in your book, The AI-Driven Leader. Now, I just want to share with everybody that really there are 3 primary parts to the AI-Driven Leader. Part 1 is redefining leadership in the AI era. Part 2, becoming an AI-driven leader. We talked a little bit about that today. Part 3 is building an AI-driven organization. I'm going to encourage everybody to go out and buy a copy of this book. There's lots of content there. But most importantly, this provides a framework and a playbook. You're going to get real-world examples, but also you're going to be provided the tools on what you can use immediately that's going to help you not only with yourself, but within your organization, and if you have employees, to help your employees be able to apply these tools as well and at least 10x their impact in your organization. So Geoff, thinking about questions for a moment as we're wrapping up our conversation, I would love it if you would share with all of us maybe one or two bigger questions that you're asking yourself today, those things that you're contemplating that are very meaningful. It can be about life, can be about business, can be about marriage. What are one or two big ones for you?
One is, as this company scales, I feel like I'm bear hugging a rocket ship. I mean, it is crazy. Business, I could easily allow business to turn me into a businessman with a family. How might I structure my calendar, and what standards and systems might I put in place so I still show up as a family man with a business, not a businessman with a family? That's one I'm asking. Two, we're so early in the game that we're really fortunate, but it feels like we have every opportunity coming at us for a guy who built a company before based on one thing. I am asking not what is product market fit, but what is founder market fit? And how do I make sure I am building a business that is in alignment with who I am and how I want to be investing the rest of my life? And how do I have the courage to say no to 90% plus of the opportunities that come our way?
Great questions to be asking yourself. And I will just share that both questions were outstanding. The second one is definitely one that I'm working on every single day, the power of saying no. Geoff, I want to thank you so very much for joining us today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. What a phenomenal conversation. I really do appreciate you giving us the opportunity to go behind the curtains a bit and get to know you on a deeper level, really pull some significant insights from you and sharing of your wisdom and of your immense talents. The young version of you who struggled, who had a difficult time, would be incredibly proud of the person who you've become. Thank you so very much. I'm grateful for you.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for this. And if this made an impact for you, I do have a request. One, please do get the book. It is the highest way that you can help me. But I would strongly encourage you to copy the link to this episode, post it on LinkedIn. If this helped you, post it, link to the book, tag me. I will literally respond to every single one of these. And I will tell you, we are launching the AI Driven Leader podcast here very shortly, season 1. So just search the AI Driven Leader. There's a trailer episode that's up. Click follow the show. And if you want to learn more about the business side of what we do, specifically the collective, AI Leadership is the website.
Outstanding. We will link to all of that in the show notes. And my friends, I want to thank you so very much for watching and for listening. And I do have a quick favor. Would you please take just a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts? That helps us expand our reach and attract amazing guests just like Geoff that bring you tremendous value. And to listen to more episodes, all you need to do is visit jscherbusinessconsulting.com, click that podcast button. And my friends, until next time, keep learning, keep growing. Make sure you run out and pick up a copy of The AI Driven Leader and apply the lessons you learn. And we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care, everybody.